consent agenda. I'm looking, is there a motion to approve the items in the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
And are there any opposed or abstentions? And thank you. Okay. Next on
Can
board,
I interrupt really quick? I'd like to add an agenda item.
certainly Foster, please.
It's a request that we got from a member, Lynn Barish.
Mhm.
It was about working with the county and trying to figure out some roadway issues that they have on Shaw Island, and it'd be nice to have a general discussion in front of the board just to understand what the logistics are. I think between you and maybe Jerry, if he's in attendance yet, would be helpful if Jerry was here.
Yeah. Would you like me? I could talk a little bit about that.
I don't think Jerry's here yet, though.
He's not here yet.
You want to hold it for a little bit?
Sure. That okay?
Yeah, why
Phil?
don't
We'll
why
pick
don't we
it up
come
from
back to
Jerry.
that?
Okay, because we both got emails concerning that, so we can
You got it.
share with everybody.
So the
Okay.
board officer elections, we still don't have Wendy here. She's celebrating her daughter's medical graduation from medical school. Pretty exciting. So we want to make sure that we have all the board members here before we have our board officer elections. So we're gonna delay that motion until August, if everyone's okay with that.
That's fine.
That's fine.
And then well, you want me to jump right in here about our read about member service policies and bylaw updates?
Yeah, go for it.
So this is the second read. We brought this up before, as we've been looking through some of the member service policies and what we've communicated with a handful of members. It'd be kind of time to gather those all together and incorporate some of the thoughts and fixes into our policies and a little bit of bylaws, mostly policies. And if we can kind of characterize them as more of a cleanup item than anything else. We've had the first read at the last meeting. And what we could do is go through the yellow highlighted areas so you can see the changes that we're proposing. And billing and collection, we just want to solidify the process that we go through for billing to make sure that it's really crystal clear what the options are for members to pay their bills. We got a lot of resources that are available, and putting them and documenting them all down. Kind of the old language was a little bit before we had all the electronics ability and website means to make payments. So we figured we'd list those. I think if you go down a little bit further, kind of see the list that we have there. It's kind of more of the current up-to-date methodology that we have. In addition to that, that's one section. Next section we have is a little cleanup for policy number 9. We wanted to solidify a fair treatment policy that, for resolution of issues. I know we've had a good discussion about our policy 9 things, and we've gone through having discussions amongst some of our members, and we really didn't have anything formalized. And if you can see in 913, you can see the formalization of a process of appeals. If you kind of go down, this is something we've been following. So everything that's in yellow is new. And we really didn't have anything solidified that if a member, maybe there was a billing issue that the general manager or staff couldn't resolve and it needs to go to the board's level, having a board of appeals laid out in detail is really helpful for everyone to understand what the expectations are. So we took this is again the second read. I don't think we made any adjustments to this particular section in yellow, but you can see the formal process that we go through when there's a board of appeals is what we're calling it, if you have any issues that go along with it. And again, it's really documenting a practice that we went through once before. And I think, and then we have a issue resolution form that's part of the process that I'm sure you guys have seen. And what if a person had an issue that we couldn't resolve on Opalco's side and wanted to bring it to the board level, what a member would do is fill out the form. The form gets reviewed by the president, the vice president, secretary, treasurer, to review what the member puts together, this form, and with the form delineating what the issue is, the board has a chance to consider what the issue is, proceed with an appeal process is one option, or maybe dismiss it right then if it's something that was already been addressed. So it goes through the formal process. And then the next area is policy 60, member information request. You know, we have so much information that's on the website. I wanted to make sure, you know, I was, you know, listening to, you know, some of the parts of the community and pretty proud of the information that we provided Opalco to make sure that we uphold transparency related topics. And I thought it was time for us to really formalize what we post on our website and to make sure that those are done on a, you know, continuous basis. And we put just about everything we can think of. The only thing that we don't put on the website are things that are personnel related or legal or competitive in nature, but everything else when it comes to budgets and financials and audit reports and so forth, we make sure that we have all that information available on our website. I think of all the websites that I know and all the co-ops that I know, I can't think of a co-op that provides better information or more available to all of the information that we have. So congratulations to all of us for transparency. So listing that was a good cleanup. And with that, I think there's a couple little minor bylaw things that were talked about as well. Just right here. We wanted to make sure it was really clear about easements, just a kind of a consistent issue that we have. Easements, what we always do is share them as a cooperative, and a part of the membership agreement, there's a no cost usability for all of our members to take advantage of without a cost implication, but we didn't really have it as clear in the bylaws, so we thought we'd clean that one up. And then since we have a Board of Appeal process that includes the executive committee, it was appropriate for us to define what that is in terms of using the members of it, the board president, vice president, and secretary treasurer. And with that, if there's any questions, let me know. Otherwise, staff recommends that the board make a motion to approve the changes as outlined above.
Okay.
Just an observation. One is I think it's good for us to list the information that we're going to share with our members and also the timelines, because some people don't understand why when the calendar ends on December 31st, we don't have all the stuff out on January 1st. And I think this gives people why and when they can expect to find that information. So I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, Krista, why don't you move up to the information that we put on the website? I'm so proud of this stuff. I mean, we actually have 2 websites, believe it or not. One is just a data storage area that we put all of our documentation in. And then the other one that we have is really the normal one you're used to seeing. But to keep it separate and keep it up to date requires a little extra work, but I think we're more than worth it.
Yeah, that plus the dashboard is just a wealth of information.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the dashboard. The dashboard's great. It's great information, real-time information.
I haven't seen another one like that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm actually talking to a bunch of co-ops encouraging them to go forward and using Tableau so they could get real-time information in their dashboards.
Good. Okay. Are there any other questions for Foster on this? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion for approval. One out there somewhere.
So moved.
Brian, is there a second?
Second.
Mark got that one. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please signify.
Aye.
Are there any abstentions or opposed? I'm hearing none on that, so Foster, that is approved as written.
Thank you very much.
Very good work on that. It's a good cleanup on these things.
Yeah, we worked. I know Joel's is on the Zoom as well. I don't know, Joel, if you want to chime up, but it's always nice to get clarity on anything that we have available.
Super.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
I think you do have Jerry now, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Mark, I'm here. Thank you to Beth and Krista for my very
deliver-
tight schedule. Here I had from the Lopez Marina, a drive with Steve Stengler, a chat with Steve Stengler while I waited for the plane, a flight to Friday Harbor, a walk down to the marina because my taxi wasn't there, and a boating across the channel to shore, dock the boat and walk in the house, and here I am. No time to spare.
Okay.
You've used all the different modes of transport today.
Absolutely. It feels like it too, Mark.
I'll bet.
So just to give everyone a little background, there was the reason that Jerry was going through all the modes of transportation. We had the privilege of having Bonneville Power Administration's chief administrator join us this morning, and we did a site tour of our Decatur Island facilities as well as theirs. And John Hairston from BPA, to have him interested in what we do and how we do it, and we're pretty unique out here, was pretty darn neat to see that he has a level of interest in the islands and the facilities that Bonneville has within the San Juan, our service territory. So it was a great morning and very, very well worth it. So thanks, Jerry, for going over trains and planes and automobiles.
The shore is right in the middle of the San Juan Islands. It shouldn't be so hard to get here, but somehow it is.
True. And with that, why don't we move on to the next?
Oh,
Why
well,
don't we bring up,
yeah.
what I did earlier, Jerry, is I brought up the Lynn Barish topic on Shaw that was going around, and I added that to the agenda item. And we wanted to wait until you returned before we had a discussion about it.
Okay, thank you.
Jared, do you want me to kind of tee it up, or do you want to do it?
No, Vince, you're
Okay.
on top of this. Why don't you go ahead and tee it
Okay.
up?
So a couple days ago, I got an email from Lynn Barish asking us to consider the following. It turns out the county is currently looking to purchase some property on Shaw Island for public works to use.
Right.
Occasionally when they go over there and do culvert clearing and chip seal on the roads and things like this, they wind up with material that they need to utilize in the works, or stuff that they clean up and they need to store it temporarily. So for example, when they clean out ditches and drainage and stuff like that, they got a lot of wet material that they have to place somewhere dry. So they have their eye on a piece of property, and the county council is going to consider this on June 25th. We got a letter basically asking us to consider whether the right-of-way underneath the distribution or transmission lines or some of our property there might be used in lieu of the purchase of the property that the county is looking at. So I said, we'd bring it up for consideration. So, and Jerry, I believe, it had some discussions too. So we passed this emails on to Foster and asked Foster to take a look at it. So Foster, if you got some comment on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to work with our community in any way, shape, and form, especially, over on Shaw, where I know space is limited and things are very expensive. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of space that we have over there as Opauco. We have just a small area with our substation. We have pole infrastructure that's over there in case poles go down. It's really just a stocking yard for our poles, and poles are pretty logistically hard to get around. So there's not really any room in our substation area and the land that we own over there. The easements created an interesting topic. We don't own the land where the easements are. We have the electrical easements. Really, it's an easement that the land is still going to be owned by somebody else, and we don't have the ability to expand that easement in any way, shape, or form. Ours is very limited to, electrical and internet related topics. So there's not a lot I think we can do to help with that. I think the county needs to maybe, they've been using, I think, a truck for a lot of years. I don't know why they're looking for a different solution. Maybe the amount of material that they're collecting is starting to become more than they're used to. But I don't know how we can really help with this topic as much as I want to.
If I can add to that, Foster, the second ask was whether we had, first of all, they claim to be looking for 5 acres of land to distribute their material on. So it's not an inconsequential request. And they asked, do we have sufficient land at our site on shore that we could consider sharing with them. And we checked today the size of the site. It's a shade tad over 1 acre. So it's basically a 1 acre site, nowhere close to what they would need, nor do I consider it safe or sensible or reasonable to share a site which has a substation on it with another county entity like this. So, I see that request as a non-starter. You've just given all good reasons for it being a non-starter with regard to the easements. And the other aspect, the crazy part, to my mind, I think probably a lot of people on shore, is that they're looking to spend $1 million on this and to purchase a residential property for a commercial use. So there's got to be some rezoning in the middle of this. It's surrounded by other residential properties who probably see that their land values will go down with this, and it's just not appropriate use of the site that they're looking at. But they're trying to rush it through. They're looking for a vote, I think, from the county councilors on June the 25th. So
Correct.
this is why we have to discuss it now, and at least get in a response from Abalco that it's a non-starter.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would sounds to me like we're all in agreement. I don't see how we can help with this issue.
Foster, let me just, I got a chat thing here. Ray Glaze, could you, you had something to contribute to, would you kick in?
Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with the situation since it's 500 feet from here.
Mhm.
So I'm one of the people that has it in the backyard. I think the concept was to take the material and spread it out underneath the high voltage lines along Reef Net Bay Road. But I agree with Jerry. I don't think that makes much sense.
Well, we have, in addition, we don't own and we only have the easement.
Oh, yeah,
Also,
that's a non-starter right there.
yeah, and then accessibility. I mean, the reason we have the easement to begin with is to make sure.
I don't think there was any idea that they would put it in the substation. That's just nuts. So
Yeah, that's only an acre. It's a little.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think that we can't really help in this instance, if that's okay.
Okay. So could I ask you, maybe a formal response back to Lynn on this to, close the loop on the email here?
Yeah, I can be more than, I'll speak on behalf that we brought it up as in the board meeting, and unfortunately can't help with this topic. We'll send something out tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Foster. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Foster.
You bet.
Okay, let's move on. Discussion items, county candidate questions.
We do this every election period, and this was really important for us as, we're having a change in the times with, what's going to go on with regional power issues, and it's becoming precarious out there. And I really was excited about forming some questions that were very relevant for the county council candidates. So we sent these out. Krista, when did we send those out? I think they're due July 15th or something. So we got a little time. When did they go out?
They went out a couple weeks ago, and I just kind of got confirmation that everybody got it and are going to respond.
So I always want to make sure that everyone understands kind of where we're coming from and outline that, the power in the Pacific Northwest are becoming more and more, an issue. And with coal plants being shut down, the supply and demand is in an equilibrium. There's just not going to be enough supply as we put more and more energy in getting rid of the carbon in the environment, which is fantastic. We have to be knowing that we need to add more renewable resources in order to balance the supply and demand. So it's kind of nice to pose some of the questions that I know that we're struggling with as a co-op, but the region is also struggling, and so is the nation. What really perked my interest here is, you go down to the next page. There was the county brought up, it was this little chart.
Mm-hmm.
The county brought up, what are the voters' top concerns? This one really hit me hard about, we've been trying to communicate what's going to go on with the supply and demand for power. And it's not even listed on here. And this was fairly recently, it was put together about what are our top concerns. And what it highlighted for me is we got a lot of work to do for Mopalco and communicating to our membership more than we have before. So we can at least inform our membership what are the struggles we're having. As more and more coal plants are being shut down, I know Centralia is going to be a fairly large coal plant that's going to be shut down in 2025. Is that going to be the trigger for outages? Probably, as a matter of fact. In fact, we've dodged 2 power outages during weather events recently, and they got very close to having a power outage in our region, and it's getting closer and closer by the day. And that's with more and more resources that are still available as the Pacific Northwest turns off more and discourages the use of natural gas generation, which is great. I mean, we're all in favor of not producing with carbon, but we have to understand the trade-offs. And one of the things that we want to make sure is that our whole community has a good discussion and dialogue about is the precarious nature of our grid. And so framing it up as such, and then asking our candidates to, how would they address these different thoughts with our membership? What we're going to do is we're going to post the responses, and so our membership can get an understanding of how all the different candidates differ and what their approaches are. And part of that is to hear from a candidate perspective, but the overall thought is to make sure that we start that dialogue and we can start putting energy related reliability issues on this chart and start moving that topic up. So there's 2 reasons that we put together the questions. One's for the candidates, but the other one is to start a pretty intensive engagement process with our members. I think our members are really happy with the reliable power that we have, and they don't really understand that the reason that we're embracing projects like Baylor Hill is because things are changing and blackouts are on the horizon. And knowing that, would you have a different understanding, or would you support kind of projects that are more renewable in nature if we can keep our prices lower and also provide reliability in our islands, which we need? And embracing local renewable generation is going to be key for this. And it's going to be a Herculean task for us to kind of change the methodology that we do. There's been a lot of prediction and a lot of conversation about if the blackouts are coming, and the cynical side, what I hear from people is, as soon as the blackout comes, then maybe people are going to be listening more to some of the options that we're proposing. But at least we can start initiating the conversations about how important these topics are. Anything you want to add to that, Vince? You're with the environmental committee. That's part of your.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I've been, as part of the climate and sustainability committee thing, I've been taking the time to, like, for example, I'm listening in on the Zoom meetings of various committees and stuff like that. Like I said, I sat through the water commission this morning and listened to them discuss about the element 4 in the water. And I was actually heartened by the discussion, because I think they've got an understanding that the current comp plan is kind of vague about, what do we need to do about understanding what our water situation is going forward. And I think they also understand that a lot of these elements, the issues cross a number of the elements, so that the comp plan can't just be a bunch of standalone silos. They have to be looked at in the way that they're connected to each other. So they're working through that. I know, I think Mark and I and Jay, we've taken the opportunity to sit down with the candidates. I've spoken to 3 of them at length, about an hour and a half meeting, going through basically the topics that are covered on this, and, having a dialogue with them on their understanding of what the energy picture looks like going forward, and, what the expectations might be that we're going to need, with respect to land use and things. But this really speaks to the importance of it, because I found that there's no surprise, there's not a deep understanding of this thing, but at least there's a receptiveness to listen to what this means. And I think, it's starting to sink in a little bit. So we got some heavy lifting in front of us. And I think this is a good start, trying to get the topic a little higher up on that chart than it's currently been.
Yeah, what I'll say is, I think the questions are much deeper and much richer in content than we've given the candidates in the past. I thought it was an extremely good list. You're absolutely right to point out the fact that power doesn't show up on that list of concerns. Most adults living not just in our community, but just in the Pacific Northwest, whether or not there was adequate power supply has never had to show up on a list like that in their lifetime. Right? So we are, and there are so many other issues on there. So we do face a big job of making sure that power does show up on the list of major issues. And I find it every time that I talk to people, they're simply unaware of how some of this stuff works. They're sort of shocked when you go through it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, I always draw the parallels, and I know that you guys too, with our internet. When we first explored helping out with the internet, we realized that you know, based on capital and investment and so forth, that very few entities within our community could actually solve the problem.
Mhm.
And having the co-op stand up and really take on that initiative was essential. But the neat thing that happened back then was the county government stopped what they were doing. We were going through, I think, the comprehensive plan at that time, and I know the shoreline issues were really contentious, and the county council, it was the 6 members at the time, stopped what they were doing. All the contentious discussions about the shoreline issue were put on hold for a couple of weeks. And we circled the wagon, so to say, and came up with a usable ordinance that worked for our broadband communication effort that we benefit from today. And I think that's exciting. So I think we've done this before. We just need to be really good at communicating both with our members and our county council candidates and ultimately county council. And we can do a lot of really good for this community once we educate the heck out of everybody.
Also, I'd like to, agree with you on that, but I think there's a bright side corollary to the response we're getting here. And, I've talked to a number of members at large on this subject, and they say, yeah, we get it. We understand it. We realize that Washington State now has CEDAR in place, this kind of thing. But we have confidence that you know how to run your business and you'll solve this problem for us. And I think that's a big shout out for Abalco, and we should take that to heart as well. So it's not just that they're being silent on it; they're being silent on it because they have confidence in the co-op's ability to be able to understand, deal with it, and provide future solutions.
Yeah, I always look at it like a big bell curve, Jerry, and the similarities to the broadband was, it's there to some extent. And when you look at the big bell curve, I think people really understand what you're saying and say, hey, you're there. When you look at particular projects and then you have a little bit of disagreement on locations and siting renewable projects, it's hard to gauge. It's hard to gauge what the big bell curve amount of people and members that we have that are in favor of it versus not. And what we learn over and over again, and Baylor Hill's a good example, we solicited comments from members, and what we get back is probably a 5-to-1 is kind of the split what we have. Are you in favor of us moving forward with Baylor Hill as a community solar project? And overall, I would say, we provide the list. It's available also on the county's website, but you can see 5 people in favor of it for every one that's going to be challenged with it based on their proximity for the most part of where they live. Over on San Juan. We've been talking about Baylor Hill. It was interesting. We've been going back to 2001 on Baylor Hill, but we do such a good job that I think people are relying on us that we're going to continue on. We had the picture of Baylor Hill on our budget report back in 2021 when we were first, entertaining buying the project or buying the parcel that we're using. So it's really interesting to see how engaged people are or not so much until it's actually time to, move forward with a project. Anyway, appreciate the ability to have the questions down. Look forward to all the responses from the candidates, and we plan on highlighting a handful of the differences between the candidates and then putting all the responses on our website. So if you want to dive deep, or you can just look at the summary information, we'll have that available.
Great. Good work. Okay, GM reports.
Let's see. I wanted to make sure there wasn't anything in the chat I needed to pay attention. It looks like it's good. You brought up dashboards before, Vince. It's
Yeah.
nice for everybody to really understand what we have available. There's real-time information here financially, as well as, you know, a whole bunch of information about quick facts and really trying to get good information out to the membership. The, you know, membership raises really great questions, and we try to answer those in, you know, either a dashboard scenario or a quick fact, so we can get the message out, you know, a little bit sooner to more and more people as we go. So it's been a big win for us. And when people ask questions, normally there's a response that we can send a link that really provides the detailed discussion that's needed for each topic that's raised by a particular member. Go down, here's our, you know, standard report for our engineering operations. This time of year, we're kicking into our work efforts. We have 350 work orders open. This is about pretty standard for where we're going in terms of the construction activity of $16 million. So we've been doing a really good job this summer. It's been a little wetter. We've had to start some of those, you know, getting trucks back into some of the furthest most areas where we need to do work is always more of a challenge when it's wet. I think our crews are doing a fantastic job getting out there. Safety, love to see those hours go up. You can see the amount of time without a lost time accident is up to 332 1,000 hours, which is fantastic. Our grant awards, I won't read them all together, but you can kind of see what we've done in terms of what we're seeking, you know, the big ticket items that we have in terms of energy resilience, that we were looking at a transmission cable as we get more and more in advance of load growth and incorporating electrification of heating and transportation. Certainly the ferries are going to be on the horizon. We're going to be at capacity on one of our submarine cables. And so we need to start looking at how a new submarine cable would you know, be embraced by us as a co-op. And so one of our major grant submittals is to DOE for that reason. We have our pilot program, which is kind of fun. It's for a pilot. For the title, I want to make sure everyone realizes that this is just an investigation grant. We're not going to be putting any tidal operations out in the ocean until we have at least a year extensive process that we're going to be working well with the community and the local environmental issues that we need to tackle, and run some really good numbers with actual tidal investigation units in the water. So kind of fun on the tidal front. Some of the awards that we've had, you can kind of see the big list. Love to see these. You know, one of the bigger ones we had was internet, so that's exciting. We were over on Decatur Island, which is a big stopover for Bonneville Power Administration. We toured our facility over there. That's one of the areas that we're kicking off for our ARPA funds to get more people connected with broadband. You could see all the equipment and all the activity going on in Decatur Island. I don't think there's been that much activity over there in a long period of time, but it's nice to see them getting forward progress in the internet world. Budget tracking. So this is the budget. If, you know, every month that goes by becomes an actual, then we keep the budget in play for the months that we haven't had completed yet. So that becomes the column called projected. So we're looking really good for the year, which is nice. When we first started the year, I got to tell you, I was wondering whether or not we were going to be in a hotter scenario. Based on NOAA, we were expecting the weather to be a little bit warmer than it is today. So we basically, our economics always look better when we have a colder condition because people heat their homes and so forth. So we're looking really good on the financial front. ECA returning, you know, normally what we do is we never want to over collect the revenue from the members or under collect. So we have that mechanism in play, and it's doing a good job. Heating degree days. We always want to be on that, call it that yellow line. That's kind of the average line. The blue line is the La Nina condition. The red line is the El Nino condition. Being in the middle is what we project for our budget. And we started to run a little bit lower than that at the beginning of the end of last year. But this year we're starting to track hopefully more in line with the yellow line that's there. At the beginning of the year, we were in the El Nino category, but the estimations you can kind of see going down are tilting towards a La Nina type of neutral condition. You can see the next chart. When you see blue, this is that chart I was referring to. When you see blue in the bars as opposed to red, that's more of a La Nina condition. So that'll balance our year out. So that's exciting for us. Member services, you see all the energy assistance funding that we've been doing throughout the years, dating back all the way to 2018 forward. Really, again, I always look to the board and say thank you for our members of all the assistance that we get for those in need of our community, and we do a good job. I can't think of other co-op that provides more assistance to those in need than we do. So thanks for stepping up and really helping. We work well with LIHEAP and other community-based operations. Department of Commerce, we still have that $1 million low-income solar grant that we're going to apply, assuming the Baylor Hill project moves forward. That's exciting. I was alluded to earlier by Krista, the Department of Commerce from Washington also has energy credits available for $200 is the average one for bill credits to Apalco's low and even moderate income members. So encourage people to look into submitting those. I know there's going to be a third-party reviewer on that to make the decision to move forward on those payments. So encourage people.
I have a question on that. How's the loop get closed? There's a third party administering it, but who comes and tells Opalco that here's the people that you're going to get the credit on their bills?
Yeah, it's really them. They're administering the program. So what we do is we offer it up. We say, here's the list of applications. They go through it. They work with our billing department and our member services group. And then we apply the bill credits and then submit those funds for reimbursement. Do I have that right, Nancy?
Not exactly. What we did, this third-party vendor, they're hired by the Department of Commerce, so it's all about them. And we give them a list, confidentially, of all of our members. And then they take that list and they cross-reference all these members to other, sheets where they might have information, that so-and-so received this sort of grant or, through other agencies, not just us. And they pre-qualify like everybody that's in energy assist right away. And they just automatically will send us a list and say, give these 350 people the $200 credit. And then they have other people, apply for it. And Krista, I think, was talking about it earlier. It's a very simple process where you can just punch in a very minimal information into this connection and you'll find out if you qualify. And so the goal is to give the money away, and it's close to $600,000 that we've been awarded. Their goal is to give it all away. So it's pretty exciting, and they just provide us a list of who to give the credit to, because it's going through their processing and their verification.
So let me ask you a question then. So do our members upload information on their website? That's my confusion.
Well, they hit the link that Krista has provided, and Krista, you can jump in and talk about that. But and then it automatically goes to their system, and people can do it on their smartphones in less than a minute and see if they qualify. And then they'll, give them the thing. But the people that are in our Project PAL or, Energy Assist program will automatically qualify, and they'll let them know that they qualify. But we take our list from the third-party vendor to give the credit.
How do we get reimbursed from the payouts that we get?
Oh, we go to the Department of Commerce thing. They'll give us a reporting. We go and, depending on the frequency and the volume, we'll go and get reimbursed from the Department of Commerce there.
Now, is that a lump?
Kind of similar to filing right now? Russell and Travis are doing an ARPA grant. That's how we get our money back from them, because we advance a lot of money associated with that. But it's the same website pretty much. And they provide you a report, and then you go online and submit the information. But this program just started, and it's supposed to be a quick reimbursement turnaround, from what I understand.
Yeah, that was gonna be my
Similar to
question
our,
about how many months it was gonna take before the money came back.
oh, it ends on September 15th.
Hmm. Okay,
So we hope to get through roughly 2,800 members by September 15th.
right.
Thanks, Nancy. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Yep.
Okay.
Here's our Switch It Up program. You know, every day that I'm out in the membership, people are really thankful that we have the Switch It Up program. I was talking to a neighbor the other day that just got a bunch of solar panels on their roof, and they were very happy to use our program. We're really thankful that we have that Switch It Up program available. So we can go down and we can see the table of all of our measures, which is always wonderful to look at. And we got a little horse race going on between ductless heat pumps is the $6 million level. And if you combine solar storage and solar together, you're looking at, almost $6 million. So that's really a popular program, and encourage people to keep using it. We only have a limited amount of time before the money's not going to be available for us. We got a lot of money available, but we have a short period of time to pull the trigger and have our members reinvested into renewable as well as energy efficiency programs and measures in their homes. So great program.
Oh, that's good.
We have the Switch It Up. We kind of put them all together in the rebates that we do with Bonneville, combine those with the Switch It Up. Again, I'm so excited about this co-op's ability to, we know the prices are going to go up for power, and we're providing some solutions for people to actually embrace renewable programs as well as energy efficiency, so we can help mitigate some of those surprises that are going to be coming down the road shortly. Solar interconnects that we got, you can kind of look at all the solar projects that we have. We're doing really well. We got 767 projects up and running. Excited to see what's going to go on with the community solar. It's fun to see Decatur again functioning, certainly with the sun's out. Baylor Hill, give everyone a quick little update on it. We've completed, we're in the process of compiling all of the responses that the county has asked for detail on our Baylor Hill site. We're going to be compiling that. I think we're going to be submitting that. Is it next week, Russell, or shortly thereafter?
Shortly thereafter. I don't think it's going to be next week.
Okay. But anyway, we're in the process of compiling a whole bunch of information that was
and we've got consultants engaged, and they're pulling materials together with our council.
Yeah, my guess is at this point, once we submit the information that was requested, the county's going to take some time to review that information. By the time we have the hearing, is probably going to, if I had to make a prediction, Joel, is probably in the month of August by the time, we've compiled everything, submitted it, and the county's had a chance to review it. Is that a good estimate in your mind?
We're hoping August is the time frame for a hearing. Yes.
So stay tuned on that. We'll give you more and more information. That'll be something that we inform our membership about. Let us know what your thoughts are. Encourage people to come to the board hearing that we're going to be having on our Baylor Hill job. And so stay tuned on that detail. Yeah.
Quick question. Is there an expiration date on the Commerce grant for the low income portion of this?
There has been. In fact, we've been very fortunate that they've extended it. And
Okay.
if we go forward with it within short order, then we should be fine. Mark,
we don't want to lose that funding, definitely.
Oh, I know, and we're starting to tickle it again. I know they were nice enough to extend it off, but hopefully we can get a decision in August and move forward with it without a hiccup.
Great.
Solar benefits to member, you can kind of see what's going on with Decatur. Community solar. We just, not everyone has a rooftop that works like my neighbor does. But that's why solar really makes sense. It was really funny. When I was talking to the neighbors, I was so excited for him because he's got so many solar panels on his roof. And he said, what? I don't know if I'm going to have enough to cover my usage. I think I'm going to buy into your Baylor Hill job, because that was one of his goals, was to make sure that he's got his energy use covered in a community solar kind of concept. So that was pretty neat to hear from somebody, one of our members. Communications, you got a good update from Krista about youth scholars, energy credits, our grant program that we have for the $200 that go to the members. Pretty excited about that. Historical Museum, I can't wait for this. And there's so much great information, and it really got exciting when you go through it. I don't know if you guys have ever gone through the Historical Museum here on Orcas, but it's really neat. And then to see how the community changed when power was brought here. And, in the 1951 is when our power cable came. And it was really an interesting time when you think about it. We think that life got easier when we got our power cable in 1951. It was interesting because now we had to do something with it. So as an organization, we had to distribute that transmission power amongst our 20 islands that we serve. So that was a really financially challenging time for our community and our co-op to really move that power around that we got from Bonneville. So we got this wonderful, connection to the mainland, and then we had to, really invest some pretty big infrastructure around. And I kind of looked at back. When I first started as the GM, I was looking back on some of those financials, and boy, I got to tell you, we were through. We were completely upside down. It was only a co-op. They got assistance from RUS, the Department of Agriculture, where we're able to be successful with working as a co-op. There's no way it would have made sense for anybody else to do this stuff. So really got to thank the Roosevelt era for cooperative power. So well done. Anyway, so it's fun solidifying that in our historical museum. And that's one of the big generators we had on that picture. We already did the upgrade on the Baylor Hill stuff. And there was also kind of I don't know if you guys are familiar with the San Juan County docket process. It's a little bit like the land use issue we're dealing with in Baylor Hill. When we went forward to purchasing the land that we were going to put the Baylor Hill job on, part of the due diligence is to make sure that it was allowable to be built there. And if you go through the San Juan County land use tables, they think utility scale generation is the old fashioned way. And if you kind of go back up, why don't you go back up to that big motor? The land use tables thought that was, utility generation. So they weren't really allowed very many places. So one of the only places that was allowed was in the agricultural land use table zoning. And believe it or not, 65% of our land use tables within the county wouldn't even allow it. So it wasn't like we had a whole lot of options available to us because it was never updated, and the land use tables are still antiquated. And then part of what we've done now is every year there's a docket ability for us to initiate with the San Juan County and let them know that we have a change that we recommend to the county's processes. And if you kind of go down to the docket thing again, Krista. So what we're able to do at the beginning of every year is we're able to submit adjustments that we would like the county council to consider. And so we put 2 docket requests related to the land use tables to allow agri-solar to be available. It's really interesting is if you were a farmer and you wanted to make ends meet, right now farms are really a challenge financially. I think they lose, Vince, it was like $3,000 was a typical loss of a farmer. And if we could generate some solar in certain portions of some of the farming, it could allow you to fill up your electric tractor, but also generate a few extra dollars so you can, at least break even on your crop yields. So that wasn't even allowed on a lot of the sites that we see out there. So we made one docket request to allow agri-solar. And then the other one was what we were really trying to solve was to allow renewable generation that was passive, not the big generator that you saw on the previous page, to allow that passive generation to be workable in more portions of the county. Right, we said, it's 63% of the land within the county don't even allow those kind of passive solar the way it's currently written. So we really want to modernize that land use table and work with the county to go forward with that. We're going to be meeting with, I think the first step in that is tomorrow. And Vince and staff are going to be joining the planning commission. And we're going to be having our 3 minutes of discussion on why it's important for us to adjust the land use tables. So if anyone is curious on going to the planning commission tomorrow morning, bright and early, what time is that, Vince? Do you remember?
I believe it's 9 o'clock, but I'll email out the link for everybody.
Great. Thank you for that. And with that, I think what else we got? I think there's just is there anything else there, Krista?
Crickets.
There we go. I kind of figured there was the
Yeah.
Rock Island snapshot ready to go. Thanks for that, Russell. We click on everything's doing great on the Rock Island snapshot front. Here's the number of net subscribers that we have connected. And we've also looked at the revenues, which is really the key. On the revenue side is we're absolutely in break-even territory, which is always nice to be at. At the end of last year, we renegotiated some operational expenses with T-Mobile to make sure that we're sharing our cost of some of the generators that we have at the base of some of the poles and some of the other I don't know, upgrades that we've installed over the last 5 years. So we've gotten those things worked into the financials, so we're able to kind of balance our world. So that's pretty exciting for Rock Island to be just at the break-even level, which we anticipated and pretty excited about it. And now we can hook more and more people up as we go with the amount of resources we have. Just to make sure that we're really clear on that, when we estimated when we first started Rock Island, we figured we could borrow the funds to start up operations and probably get to break even, but we were only going to get to about half of the membership connected. So the other half were not going to be connected, and we were going to really not have the ability to connect them because we wouldn't have the loan funds available at that stage, because that's really what the revenue projections would look like. Now we're at that great spot that we're actually breaking even, making enough money. So our goal now is to make sure that we can take those dollars that we have and then put them back into the investment of new subscribers. So our hope and our goal has been achieved. Now it's a matter of us of getting a hold of more grant funds, accelerates it even further. But hopefully we can just keep making connections and self-funding those through the revenues that we've been generating since we hit the break-even targets. So pretty excited about where Rock Island has been succeeding.
Foster, got a question. Are the monthly payments from our telecommunications partner now starting to come in?
They're just about, I think we're probably August is when we're going to be solidifying. In order for us to make those final details work, we had to go through on a poll by poll basis and review and agree upon what those are. We've agreed to the total number, so we already know what that is, but now we're just going through the legal formatting and making sure that everything is good with their billing module and consistent with what our agreements are with them. Anything you want to add in there, Joel?
Oh, I could, but I won't. Just suffice it to say it's coming. Yeah.
No. So
that's not reflected in this revenue as of yet. Is that correct?
What we do is we do it on an accrual basis. So we have it in there and then we'll
Okay.
do it true up once, it gets embedded in there. But from an accrual basis, that revenue is in there.
Got it. Thank you.
You bet. And with that, we're done with our board pack.
Okay. So let's see. I'll offer an opportunity for any of our members out there. Are there any comments you want to make at this point before we close out? No? Okay. Don't see any. Okay. So let's formally close out our regular
Rick
session.
had a comment, it seems.
Ooh,
Yeah, I
who-
wonder if I could just get a sort of gauge. Clearly, Opalco has a fair amount of flexibility and freedom in what we do to generate power. I'm sure there's regulation, but seems to me as a co-op, we can sort of blaze a trail in many ways. In the view of the board, what is our tolerance for risk? Meaning, I know that reliable power is one of the main things that our community and our members want, and I understand that. I'm wondering if we tried something fairly risky, or at least some level of risk, whether it be tidal, whether it be more rooftop solar, whatever the thing is. What is the tolerance for risk? Is it very low because we have a community that says never turn the power off? Or are they willing to, do you think the community is willing, or the members are willing to accept some risk for sustainability gains?
If I can chime in, Vance, is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, great question. The reason that we joined, do you remember the group PNGC, Pacific Northwest Generating Cooperative, that we joined a few years back?
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, so what we are is there's, I don't know, 16, and now it's 18 cooperatives that have gotten together, electric distribution cooperatives, to try to solve that issue. And the neat thing about co-ops is we're able to join forces with one another and have access to low funding for capital improvements. So joining forces with other co-ops allows us to utilize different service territories. Now, let me paint a picture. So if we wanted to embrace a community solar project and say that our community was like, we're really going to be struggling with these things, we need to make sure that we have a plan B. One of the plan Bs that we're going to be looking at is maybe there's another co-op on the eastern part of Oregon, for instance, that may have the ability to put more a community solar project out there with more ability for solar profile. And if we made an investment and extended that over into that service territory, we would, from a financial perspective, benefit from that way. That wouldn't be incorporated into our power. Now, you wouldn't get the electron necessarily, but I think from a financial perspective, the goal is to minimize that risk so we don't have that exposure. Now, if we work together well, and these are some of the details that we're doing with Bonneville Power Administration, is work together as a joint operating entity, of which PNGC is. That allows us to pool our resources together and optimize, amongst all of us, who gets what power. So it's pretty exciting about what we can do from a power purchasing perspective by joining a G&T like Pacific Northwest Generating Cooperative. In addition to that, everything that we've been doing, whether it's a solar project or whether it's, a tidal one, has really been hinging upon grant funds. And what a great way to minimize your risk and to use the grant fund ability to move forward. If you looked at tidal and you said, hey, you wanted to raise the funds to put in tidal, that's heavily risky. If you do that with the grant funds, then you really lower that tolerance down dramatically. And having a partner out there with, like we have in our tidal operations that we're investigating, that partnership would also lend into, minimizing some of the risk that goes along with it. But the key to what we've been doing up till now, since the Infrastructure and Jobs Act funding has been available, is to really optimize that. So when it comes time for any investment into our grid or any future renewable generation, grant funds is really where we want to go. From a little co-op, right? We have 15,800 meters. That's not much, and the only way that we're able to build projects that aren't risky is to make sure we stay within our means. We're very risk adverse. We have access to the funds that we have through RUS, but we have to make sure that we can pay those funds back. And RUS requires us to go through financial analysis so they have the confidence that we can pay those funds back and never overextend ourselves. And that's part of the beauty about being connected with the Department of Agriculture. So we never can extend ourselves over those thresholds. Otherwise,
Foster?
Yeah.
I thought I heard a slightly different question. So I think you've gone through the economic risk. I thought the question was, would we be willing to use resources that are less reliable, which may reduce the reliability of our members? Do we hear
Brian,
that
Brian,
message
that
from?
was, yeah, that was kind of where, and Foster, I get the financial and economic, and I agree with you. I think that from a risk aversion perspective is important, and I would be low risk on financials. I was thinking about, and again, I don't have a specific example because I'm still studying this, but I was thinking, maybe we could invest or work with others to invest into a new technology that is not fully proven that might work, whether it's tidal power or whatever. And I'm kind of asking, do you think our members would understand that we're trying something new?
I would say that if that occasion did come up, it would probably be through PNGC. Would we move forward with something like that? What I would do is I would bring it back for the board to consider, looking at all
Sure.
the financials and the probabilities of success and so forth. And I think the board would have to make the decision on whether that's something they want to fund. I don't think I would bring back something that would be too risky though, Rick.
Okay, so we're somewhat risk averse. We still believe that and I'm not suggesting it's wrong. I'm merely echoing that a dependable source is more important than, or at least equally as important as a migration to sustainability.
I think that's the proper balance, yeah.
Thanks.
And to be clear, we're doing exploration of tidal power. So
Sure.
we're not risk adverse at exploring things like tidal power because those are starting to be proven technologies that are in production implementation elsewhere in the world. Right?
Okay.
So,
I get it. And as Mark, as you can imagine, somebody has to break the ice on any new technology and put it in production and take a risk. My
Sure.
question is, would Opalco, I assume well-funded Opalco, would Opalco take that risk to go forward and try it? Clearly a plan
Sure.
B would buy it from Bonneville if it wasn't working, or buy it from whomever.
I'm
But
glad you think we're
would we
well-funded.
stick our neck out for something that isn't proven or is only partially proven?
I think it depends entirely on the nature of the technology.
Okay.
Right. I don't
And again,
know how to answer
my
that
sense
question in the
is-
abstract.
I think that we might be will. I mean, we're spending money now on the new technology here for tidal, but we're spending money, but there's no risk to our customers of the lights going off. I think that's the part that I think is a different thing. If we were bringing up a technology that just may not work, and we had enough backup, we could just continue to buy the money from Bonneville or use our solar or our battery or whatever. I think we might consider doing that. But that's a very different thing than spending some money and the board would say, what's the risk from an economic standpoint, and make a decision whether to move. I would not do anything that brings the risk of keeping the lights on.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough.
My
point was, and Mark was helping me make it, my point was, somebody's got to break the ice on new technology and actually, take a risk and go do it. And, it appears to me, and I don't know if tidal is the right answer here, but it appears to me that, Opalco is in a unique position to try it. Because we're a small community and it's a small scale event. But second, because we have I think, a membership who is very, very sustainability oriented.
I think that you certainly have, I think there is a good large subset of the membership that are very sustainability oriented. And I think there is a subset of the membership that is maybe not quite there yet. And I think that varies strongly by island. And I think we have very different cultures in different places. So I think it is important for us to educate the membership about what the technologies are and bring people along so they understand. And I think, Rick, you may belong to part of that community that's very forward thinking and very forward looking about this. And I think some of our challenge is making sure that we can bring the whole membership along as we change the the fuel mix as we change what resources we use to bring power in. I mean, you've seen the integrated resource plan, right? And it definitely has us adding significant components of renewable energy. And there is real controversy about whether or not that's necessary at all among some parts of our community. And I think we have an education issue because it isn't about preferences, right? This isn't about, I want solar. This is about, we need the electricity supply to meet our needs. And so I'm right there with you, definitely, but I definitely think that we have an education issue. And to some extent, that governs how much risk we can take at any given point in time.
Right, exactly. That's my
Right.
point. Okay.
You bet.
We've done, thank you. Great set of answers. I didn't want to take that much time. I was trying to gauge risk level and I got my answer, which is financially, we're risk averse. Project wise, we're willing to go into a risky project with a potential of failure, provided we have a backup plan that does not interrupt the electric service.
I would add one thing, and I know we're going to move on. I would add one thing to that, Rick, is it's going to evolve, right? We know that what's going on with the power industry today is going to be very different tomorrow. And we're able to take advantage of potential grant funds right now. And boy, is that a big win.
Yeah.
Our little co-op can only handle a little bit of investment without dramatic increases to the rates. And we're really avoiding that. So we're in a great situation to be in right now because of the availability of those grant funds. Let's keep exhausting all those things out before we get into some of those other projects that we may have to consider if the mainland power grid becomes way riskier. Then we need to figure out a way to get to be more self-serving than that.
Well, what I was doing, Foster, I was sort of teeing off your earlier comments that, you know, there is an impending crisis, and I agree with you. Now, I can't tell you whether it's, you know, 1 year, 5 years, you guys know that better than I do, but there's an impending crisis. So the question is, when do we have to start really shifting to, hey, your power might go out from 2 to 4 because we're doing this crazy project. That won't, I mean, there's a small percentage of the island would accept that today. They won't accept, you know, most of the island won't accept it. And eventually people have got to accept it and or make some changes.
Yep, and I think that loss of load probability increases over time. So we don't have to jump off the cliff today, but we better have that timeline in the horizon, like you point to. So thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
Foster, if I could add a couple of points to this, because Rick did pose this as a board question, I believe.
Yeah.
At the beginning, what are the board's views on this? And I'd like to give you a couple of answers, which I think will play into you know, the conservative position that we intend to take. First of all, with regard to a technology like tidal power, we've got a very good developer of this technology based in Scotland. And I think we have a lot of confidence in their engineering ability to be able to produce something that will work. So it's incumbent upon us to therefore put both the technology risk and, as a result, the financial risk on their shoulders. And the way that I would support going forward on this is that we actually enter into a power purchase agreement with the vendor, and that they put the design together, they put the equipment in the water, we pay for the power they produce. They don't produce any power, we don't pay anything. So that's how we minimize economic risk. Obviously, we're short of power to a certain extent at that point, but it's a very good way, and it's a well-established process in the utility business with new technology. So I think that's, and you know, I think they are open as a company to entering into that kind of agreement, because we would be the first installation in the United States, and they're very keen to get their foothold in the US. So, you know, I think there's synergies on both sides to make that happen. The other point I want to make to you is there is an underlying backstop to all of this as well. And if you look at the CEDAR agreement, there, if we don't provide carbon-free power on the timescales that they talk about, there's a penalty phase, and it's quite explicit what that penalty phase is. So that's the backstop. We're prepared to take risk up to the cost of paying the penalty. If it's going to be more risky than that, then we take the penalty over over the more risky technology. So that there is a way of limiting financial risk at that, using that as a means, and therefore we can provide power to make up for any deficiencies in stopping blackouts by providing power which has some carbon content to it, and the minimizing the carbon content still will minimize the penalty phase of it. So it's worth considering that as a backstop to our risk.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we need to move on now, Foster. You're muted.
Yep, I think that's it. I think we're at the tail end of this one. We have, I think, one executive session topic to go through. So
Correct. So
thanks everybody for attending. Thanks for your input, Rick. Appreciate it.
good. And close out the regular session here, and we'll move into executive session.